Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney,
I'm MK.
and I moved my mic far away from me and didn't realize it, so I hope I sound okay.
You sound
Um,
great.
Good. How are you?
Other than the fact that I hiccuped as soon as I pressed record and must have started this with the weirdest look on my face, um, I'm okay. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I have a horrible, horrible cough. And last night, my dad and Dan were talking to me about me being sick. And I go, it's just the season's changing and the fact that I spend every single waking second in existential dread.
That'll do
And
it.
they both just looked at me like they were so concerned. And then my dad started listing all the vitamins I needed to be taking, and I was like, "Oh, that's so
He's not
sweet."
wrong.
I mean, you're both so right, and I appreciate that you guys both want to take care of me. I am gonna die. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I also should be on those vitamins as well,
yeah,
probably. So like, look, tis what it
yeah.
is.
But I went to mass this weekend, which I don't usually go to mass on the weekends. I go to mass when I have to for school, but I don't go to
Mhm.
mass because, not Catholic. But the priest at my school, who I hopefully will ask to be the priest that marries me, was celebrating his 25th year anniversary of being in the priesthood. So they had a really special mass for him. So I went and took Dan, and he's from Nigeria, and he is
I
wonderful.
have
And
a side question. Are
yeah,
we having, so we're having a Catholic wedding?
yes.
All right, 7 hours. I got you. I'll be prepared now.
No, it won't be that
They're
long, I
so
promise.
long. They're
They're
so
not.
long.
They're
I've been
like
to
an
so many Catholic
hour.
weddings.
Well, I've never been to a Catholic wedding that's longer than an hour.
They are like 17 hours long. They just go forever.
That okay,
Funerals too.
well, Louisiana Catholic is apparently not the same as Buffalo Catholic.
Maybe not.
Um, so the priest is from Nigeria. He's lovely. This mass was actually an hour and 45 minutes long, but it was his celebration, and there was like eight priests and five of them were from Nigeria, like to celebrate his. Um, Father Moses, who gave the homily, stood up and said, "Do you guys want a 5 minute homily or an hour?" It was about 40, so like he lied. But anyway, I my old priest literally did only do like 5 minute homilies. Mass used to be like 32 minutes long from beginning to end.
That is absolutely wild. Yes, very different from Southern
Yeah.
Catholic.
Um,
I'm telling you,
but
these weddings lasted like ages.
in this mass, because it was a special like feast mass, I think we did every single prayer that you could possibly do in a mass at this mass. And we did the penitential act. And as I'm standing there in a Catholic church with my fiance and my grandmother, all I could think was, "Dear God, we can't say this prayer at my wedding because if Courtney and I are standing at the altar and the priest just goes, through my fault, through my fault, through my most grievous fault, we're both going to lose our fucking minds."
I'll start. What's the one he is coming? I'm gonna just start saying it. I I'm just gonna
I
start saying he's
literally,
coming.
well, in the middle of the penitential act, I just go, "Oh my God, Courtney's going to think that we're being exorcised in the
I'm gonna
middle of
curse
my
your wedding on
wedding."
accident. I'm
Like
so
I was
sorry.
like in the middle of my wedding, and I like left the church, and Dan was like, "Are you okay?" And I go, "I'm just like worried that I think about exorcisms too much." He was like, "Hey." Well, because also like Father Peter reminds me of Father Bennett, like a little bit, in just like his like pure heartedness and his like genuine love for God. I was like, sometimes I think I'm
You could be an
gonna
exorcist.
burn. I'm gonna burn when I walk into a church because I can't help it. I don't know. And so
It's
that
so
was
funny.
how my weekend went. Aside from being sick and coughing and stress crying all weekend, I also thought that my wedding might turn into an exorcism. So
Hey, I'm telling you, if someone starts it, I'm joining in. I will start saying the Lord's Prayer.
yeah,
I will do it. I will make
but
sure there are no demons at this wedding.
But I literally, I was like, I go to mass all the time. I like know it's different than church, but it's that one. It's that penitential act. Every time I hear through my most grievous fault, I hear it in Marcus Keene's voice, and then I'm sure that there's a demon.
Yeah. I mean, there may have been. It was a 2 hour long service, so
It's true.
yeah,
Yeah,
something's
so
going
that was
on.
my funny story. I told you before we
I
were
love
recording that I had a really funny story, but I couldn't tell you till on the podcast. That's what it was.
I love it. I can't wait. We are exercising your wedding. Um, I'll come prepared. Um, so I had my Halloween already a week and a half ago. Halloween's tomorrow for those of you
Yeah,
who are not in our homes with us. Um,
correct.
it was hopefully all of you, but
Might need an exorcist.
yeah. Um, I went to my first ever haunted house. I,
Ugh.
as a 30-year-old, have never been to one because I am a baby.
Yeah, no,
And
I don't love them.
yeah, well, we did the Halloween festival at the Eastern State Penitentiary.
I saw that. How was it?
It was incredible. They
Oh my
said it was
God.
like an hour and a half long. We were there 4 hours.
Oh my
I don't
God.
know. I don't know what they were thinking. But that was like, so my mom's birthday was the 24th, so it was technically my mom's birthday trip, but she kept saying it was our birthday trip since we basically what we did last year. We went on my birthday this year, we went on her birthday.
Right.
And so it was incredible. There were 5 haunted houses. At one point, they wanted us to die. They sent us into this like machine shop one, and just me and my mom. Like
No.
they send you in groups, like 8 people, and then they wait, and then they send 8 people. No, no. And I was in the front, so I had no idea it was just the two of us. And it was what I tell you, my anxiety has never spiked so high
No, I would have died.
and stayed there.
112%.
I was like, this is why they say you can't have a heart condition when you go into these things, because I literally probably took a solid 5 or 10 minutes to come down from that. Like,
Mhm.
and it was not that long of a like go through, but it was just the two of us. And like I knew it, and it was completely dark. And they said stay to the right. So I stayed to the right, like you're supposed to. But it was terrifying. There was also a vampire one, the crypt. And when you go through, that's the last one you get to, because it goes from like easiest to hardest. The first one was like trippy because they give you 3D glasses. It was called Delirium, so it makes me think of
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh, like
Okay.
the drug
Yeah.
scenes, and but
Like
like
Dumbo and the pink elephants on parade.
yeah, the pink elephants on parade,
Yeah.
that's the one. And so like it kind of felt like that. So like every now and then people like jumped out at you, but it was 3D glasses, so it was really just dizzying more than
Yeah,
anything.
like, okay.
Yeah. And so it wasn't like scary. And then we had the big top circus, which again was not that scary. People jumped out at you, but it was, you expected everything. It was kind of like there was some lights and stuff on. And then it was the machine one where I was just like thrown to the wolves, terrified. And then they had one that was called Nightmare. And it was supposed to be like sleep paralysis, but it was not scarier than the machine one. Um, and then the last one was the crypt. And at one point there were just like bodies hanging from the ceiling. And it made me think of the Little Nightmare game that you probably have not played. Um, where you have to like get out of situations where there's like bodies hanging from the ceiling. But you have to like weave through them, and they like at one point we went to go through, and I'm such a chicken still. I was following very closely to the couple in front of us because I was like, I'm not getting left behind again. I'm not doing this. And like as soon as they went through one part, a guy just like popped up in my face and was like, go the other one. I was like, no choice. We're separated. It's fine. And like the last scene of that one, they had this like lighting to where it looked like you were in a swamp. The way that the lights hit the fog, and you couldn't
Absolutely
see
not.
below your like elbows.
Mhm.
And I mean, other people might could. I'm very short, and but you can't see like below your elbow. It was so
Yeah.
trippy, but it was very cool. And then they like drinks and stuff. They had like campfire stories. They were supposed to have s'mores, but they were out when we went. But
Gross.
they had like we got like free drinks. We went to Al Capone's. I kept saying Al Pacino's, but it's Al Capone's jail cell, and they had like flapper girl performances and stuff. They had a guy doing blackjack in one of the cells. It was so fun.
That's
And
great.
we were there, like I said, we were there for like 4 hours, and incredible. Just the best time of my life. So I'm a little bummed that I don't really have, I mean, I'm going to Caitlin's show tomorrow because it's Tuesday,
Tuesday?
but like
Yeah.
I don't have like regular Halloween plans, and I'm
I
sad that
don't
I've finished all of mine.
I don't know if I'm doing anything tomorrow night because tomorrow's really my only night that I don't have anything to do, so I could
Mm.
relax. But I did get an email offering comps to Milan
Have you seen Moulin Rouge yet? Oh, it's so
from
good.
backstage.
It's not the same. It's so
Well, it's also not the same because the elephant and the windmills are not on tour.
good. Mm.
Um, so it's not the whole experience anyway.
So
And to be honest, I don't
who's
like
doing
them.
it?
What do you mean?
Like who's performing?
Oh, no one that I know. Like,
Mm.
I mean, I know them now, but like,
Sure.
um, there was no names that I knew. Um, I don't like I don't like the Moulin Rouge musical. Like
You don't like it?
I no, I love the music from the movie so
Me too.
much
I
that
do too.
the changes are not they don't sit well with me. Like
It's a jukebox musical.
there's a couple of them that sound nice that are nice arrangements, but I don't like it.
I
So
think it's a fun show, but I understand.
yeah.
I don't think you're wrong.
I
I
would
understand.
rather honestly like make hot apple cider and watch Over the Garden Wall in my PJs. Like that feels like a
Well,
way better.
I don't want to do that, but I do want hot apple cider.
You still have never watched Over the Garden Wall, have you? We need to fix that.
It's
The
like
other
such
day,
a strange event.
the other day, Dan and I were cooking over the weekend, and I just go, "It's October." I said, "It's almost Halloween, and I haven't watched Over the Garden Wall yet this year." And he goes, "Is that your way of saying you don't want to finish watching the baking show with me?" I go, "No, I just watched a TikTok about Over the Garden Wall and realized that I haven't watched it yet this year, and I need to fix it. We can watch the baking show. That's fine." But we will be watching it tomorrow if
Hmm.
he doesn't know that that's going to happen. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry for Dan because it's
The
strange.
best show in the whole world.
I don't know. I'll probably love it now, but it was very disturbing whenever Caitlin tried to show it to me the first time.
Yeah,
Um,
but no, I think you'd get it now.
I probably would. Other things that I get sometimes are spiritual guidance. Um, because we aren't just hanging out, we're doing a podcast. I was just gonna sit here
Right.
and talk to you all night. Um, but in lieu of conversation, would you like to spiritually enlighten me?
So I was looking for a quote and I kept just like nothing was speaking to me. And then I found a quote and I said, well, that's not very helpful or kind, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Great, love it.
And the quote for the day just says, to be adult is to be alone.
That's depressing.
It's so depressing. But that's where I'm at mentally.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll give you my spiritual quote in the middle of the episode when it comes up.
Okay, beautiful.
It's just as enlightening as yours.
Great.
So today we are watching, if you didn't figure it out, The Exorcist, season 2, episode 5, which means we are halfway through this season and we have 5 episodes left. Come
That is
Christmas, we are
crazy.
American Horror Story in it up. So stay tuned, guys. Um, this episode is called There But For the Grace of God, which makes me think of, is it the Vince Gill song? But for the grace of God above.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What is this?
There,
What
but
is this?
I think it's Vince Gill. I think you're right. There, but for the grace of God go I is the Bible verse.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. Anyways, it made me think of the song immediately, and I don't want to
also,
ruin any licensing rights.
it came up. Was it a Stargate episode? Also, it might have been a Stargate episode name. Also,
Was it the one where we had Corey's dad as the evil guy? Or was there one called like State of Grace or something, maybe?
there, there was something. You keep talking, and I'm gonna look it
Okay.
up.
I'm gonna keep going. Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's 10 o'clock and I slept for an hour and a half last night, so I am hanging in there. Um, this premiered November 3rd of 2017. It was rated 7.9 out of
Oh,
10.
also it's Keith Urban, not Vince Gill. Sorry.
See, I was like, is it Keith Urban or Vince Gill? It's a great song.
No.
Um, 7.9 out of 10. We just kind of like hang around the same rating through the whole season, I guess. Not a lot of difference there. The number one song is Rockstar by Post Malone. I, first of all, don't really know a lot about Post Malone. I kind of missed that train, but it doesn't feel like it started 6 years ago. It feels like it was more recent that he got popular, but I
Yeah,
also remember when
I
this song came out, so I guess it was 6 years
um
ago.
um there but for the grace of God was the season 1 episode of Stargate where Daniel went to the quantum universe with the mirror for the first time.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I knew I like as you were saying that I was like, no, that's definitely a Stargate title.
Well, we just have so many tie-ins because our guest stars from both
Stargate
are
this
the
week was
same.
both, yeah.
We just don't even know anymore. The number one movie was Thor Ragnarok, which means it is
Ugh,
about the time when I'm graduating from law school, 6 months away, because we watched that when Caitlin and Jamie came to stay with me after my graduation.
right. And
Um,
what month of 2017 are we in
November,
right now?
November.
November.
We're at the
Sorry, I
end.
was the end of November.
At the beginning of November, the end of the year.
Oh, okay, great. I missed
November
what day
3rd.
you said it was, November
That's okay.
3rd.
That's okay. The number one book is still Origin by Dan Brown. So on this day, I went with my typical news headlines, and I was like, this is when it came out that multiple cast members had accused Kevin Spacey of sexual misconduct. And then I was like, everything is always sad. I'm going
Yeah,
straight to pop culture, straight to
do it.
entertainment news. I need something new. So it's
Mm-hmm.
also the day that Red Pill Blue came out by Maroon 5 that
Mm-hmm.
I had very mixed feelings about. I remember it came out, I hated it. I liked like two songs on it. And then after I moved to New York, I started listening to it on the train and I was like, this isn't that bad. And I got really into it. Now, I mean, it's not my favorite Maroon 5 album, but it's one
Yeah.
that I can jam to. So I
I was
appreciate
getting
it.
on that day, I was getting ready for a Christmas parade by painting shower curtains in order to make a giant luminaria bag.
I was probably crying because our internship department would not let me do a for-profit internship and has now ruined my life because I would have worked at Universal and I don't know. So
Yeah.
I had an offer, but I had to do it as an internship and they wouldn't let me. So thank you,
No,
Loyola.
fuck that school.
Thank you, Loyola. I have a lot of strong feelings about that. I say it a lot more than
Yeah.
necessary. The director is Alex Garcia Lopez. He is known for Cowboy Bebop 2021, so I don't know if it's any good. I've only seen the original.
Doug just finished it and he really liked it actually.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I've only
Yeah.
seen the original, so I don't know. I know it had a good cast, but that was it.
Well, John Cho
Um,
was in it, so
yeah, oh, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Um,
Well, no, I walked in the room and he had something on the TV and I just saw John Cho and I go, "Are you watching Cowboy Bebop?" He goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Sorry, I love John Cho. I know everything." And he goes, "Okay, have you seen it?" I go, "Oh no, not at all."
I used to really like it. I remember I think it was when it first came out. We watched the cartoon one, me and my cousin. Um, but also he's known for The Witcher, which I didn't watch, but everyone else in the world did. Utopia, which I did watch, not super great, but it's fine. And The Punisher, which I also didn't watch.
But that
I
one,
think the new
but
one.
The Witcher and The Punisher were both very, very well received.
Yes, yes. Utopia was too. I just didn't find it that great myself. So I think it
Fair
was
enough.
Amazon Prime, and I watched a lot of things very similar at that same time. I watched
Mm,
like three shows that were very similar, and it was the one that I was like, this is the one I don't care for.
yeah.
So it was fine overall. Fun fact about him, he studied music at Berkeley. Um,
Great.
he did a lot of music. He composed for ads and TV before he got into film. And he was like, I always do my spot. I was behind the camera, but I just made my way in music until then. Our writers are returning Alyssa Clark, David Grimm, and Yasmin Yilmaz. And our editor is Pietro Ciccini, all returning. Our guest star is not
Not Christopher Cousins.
not him. It is Zuleika Robinson who plays Mouse. And she did have a very small scene in this episode, but she was
Yes.
higher billed, and we've seen a lot more of her already. So I was like,
Yeah.
she is known for Hidalgo, The Merchant of
Okay.
Venice, 2004. I assume there's multiple versions, so I wrote down the date.
Yes.
Um, Homeland and Lost. And just she's like a world traveler. She was born in London and grew up in Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. And now
Love
she
to see
lives.
it.
I know.
Who did
Did you
you?
not
You
know?
didn't happen to write down? Okay.
No, because
It must have not been a massive part because I don't remember her, but that doesn't mean
yeah,
we'll just.
I watched the first season and I haven't finished it, but I've left it spoiler free still. I've done very good at not.
Ooh, that's
I know.
amazing.
The Sopranos and Lost, those are my two biggest accomplishments that I haven't had spoiled so far. So I feel very positive about that. One day I'll watch them both. But I know I have
I
to.
heard. I heard none of that.
Oh, can you hear me now? Is it you or is it me?
You hear me?
Can you hear me? I hear you.
Oh, there we go. Okay, no.
Oh, I was saying that one day I will watch Lost and Sopranos, but I
Yep,
know if I start watching The Sopranos, I will never do anything else for the rest of my life.
correct.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
wait. Um, yeah. So that's that. And now it's time to get into this catastrophe. And my brain does work this week. So I followed the storyline, unlike last time.
This week
I'm fine.
was
Don't worry.
a rough episode for us.
It was a rough episode for us, me mentally. But I've rested since then. Not recently, but I have rested since then.
Yeah.
So I'm better. So we started this episode. I don't know if you noticed, but in the corner of the screen when it first started, there were just centipedes all crawling on the tree. I didn't appreciate that because
Yeah, I didn't notice.
fine in horror. And so I was already knew this was going to go off the rails. Not that I didn't know, but
Right.
like that just solidified it. And of course, we start with Andy walking into Grace's room to talk to her. And he's like, let's go outside and read a book. And she's shushing him and starts looking, similar to how she did the last time when he thought someone was in the room. But this time, Verity was in the room. And she's like, who are you talking to? And she's like, what's going on? And he just like loses his mind. He starts like seeing the room for what it is. Grace has disappeared. He sees that there's rotten food on the floor. And she's like, she asked him, she's like, is this a Nikki thing? And he just goes off on her.
He
And he's like,
loses
I'm
his
allowed to
fucking
grieve.
mind.
This is that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that is, I don't think she said you weren't allowed to grieve.
Right. Like that was not the question.
Yeah. And he just starts like going off. So she leaves because he's yelling at her. And he starts like spinning and like isn't seeing things correctly. And all of a sudden he gets like bit by a bug and has this horrible mark on his chest.
Oh, gross.
No
Yeah.
good. And appeared very quickly for a bug
For a
bite.
bug bite. Yeah, no. That was not.
And he has this horrible mark, and then Grace reappears and the room is coming back. And he starts realizing in his head that he's making all of this up and he's
That she's
losing it.
not real, yeah.
And so he goes to leave and she kind of like cuts him off at the stairs and he's just like, you're not real. And we get to the credits. Eek. Crazy.
What a way.
What a way. So then we, are back to the whole crew. Rose walks in and Andy's just like packing and pulling out camping stuff. And she's like, excuse me, what's going on? What's happening here? She's like, feels like a good day for camping. I was like,
and she's like, but does it?
Yeah. And she's like, today though, just like suddenly, and like, I don't know if when you think you're losing your mind, going into the woods is the proper answer.
I think yes, because he knows the house is what's making him lose his mind.
I think perhaps, but it doesn't seem to have helped him that well. He's still.
Oh, no. Obviously, that is incorrect, and there's way more going on here. But like, if you are going insane and you have never really left this house, and this house is where all the tragic memories are.
And you
Yes,
think that Grace can't leave the house.
right. And you think that somehow the house is mentally attacking you.
Yeah,
Yeah, the correct answer is to leave. Like, he's not
sure.
the dumbest.
Yeah. And we learned that it's the 14-year anniversary of when he proposed to Nikki. So he's already like in a fragile state.
Right.
And so, of course, Rose is like, great, you're grieving all in, no matter whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll maybe push back a little bit more, but fine. And then Father Tomas, who is apparently upset Verity in some way because she is not pleased to see him there.
She just seems to hate the priests
In general,
in
which
general.
we do learn later a little bit of
That
snippets.
it's not entirely
Right.
invalid, but
Yes.
she's got a distaste for them as
Yeah.
humans.
And she's got it's a little much at first before you realize it. I was like, okay, Verity,
Right.
calm down. But he has to see Rose, and so she's just like, whatever. So Rose, he goes to talk to her, and he's like, do you know who we are? And she's like, you're exorcist. Like, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, why would I not know that? And then he is talking to her, and he kind of like starts seeing the room like do weird stuff again. And it's not necessarily like moving, but it's almost like that way.
He's like,
And
do you notice anything like kind of off about this place?
yeah, and he's like, I think that he's talking about like the devil's help and all this and how people are bad. This is the quote I wanted to say for my spiritual affirmation.
Oh my
She
God, I know
says,
exactly which quote you're talking about.
people don't need the devil's help to be horrible to each other. And I was like, that's not really
That
spiritually.
is not spiritually informative at all, but it's as accurate and depressing as mine.
It feels like it fits. It feels like I should
Yeah.
have just gone with it. But
Yeah.
instead I tried to be a happy person. I don't know.
Good luck.
Yeah. And so he starts telling her, he's like, I think there's something bad going on. And he's like, do you mind if I just like speak with the kids? Like ask them if they've noticed anything. And she's like, absolutely not.
Which
like
she's not wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah.
But also he is the reason that Harper's saved. So like I would be hesitant to like maybe with Harper, but like you could ask like Shelby or like Verity, maybe the older kids, like the ones who aren't going to be as easily swayed by you telling them like, are weird things happening? Being like, yeah, weird things must be happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but
I mean, to be fair, he's like a priest who with no relationship to these kids who's like, I'd like to talk to them about the weird shit that they're seeing because I think there's demons. As a social worker, absolutely keep him away from them. That he's a psycho. Like, you know what I mean? Like the first instinct, he's always a psycho.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, that's always my first instinct for everyone. Right. So then we go to Marcus and his BF, who I didn't remember his name until the end of the episode, but it's Peter. Yeah. And it looks like they're going for a boat ride. And so I was like, oh, did he actually take him up on this offer? But it turns out he's just going to talk to him when we learn about this man named Glenn Powell, who apparently has murdered his entire family.
Well, because Marcus has decided to believe Tomas, and he's like, so he's like asking around, and he's like, Peter, has anything like violent ever happened on this island? Like, you know what's going on. And he's like, violent, like a boat accident violent, or violent like Glenn Powell accident? Well, okay, if you know a man murdered his whole family and someone asks you if something is violent, then yeah, you sure like one. That's where we're talking.
Yeah.
What? His casual questioning of if that's what we mean, very confusing to me.
100%, Peter. Bless your heart. This is 100% what we mean. So he tells him the whole story. He just one day goes off and murders his family, and his oldest daughter's at a sleepover, and he goes to murder her, and she's hiding, so he just kills everyone else at the sleepover.
And someone misses her.
So he doesn't see her because she's hidden away in some like cabinet, like, and he just never finds her before the police get there and shoot him. So yeah.
There's more to that story to me.
Violent. Huh?
But that feels like there's more to that story to me. Like, especially now knowing that like there's for sure demon involvement. Like that kid did not just escape. by chance. Like something's fishy, and I
Yeah,
don't like it.
yeah. And so they're going to talk to her because she's probably not had enough trauma in her life. May as well just keep bringing it up. Um,
Right.
so that's fine. So we go back to Andy, and Grace is trying to talk to him again. And he's just like, "You're not real." He could tell he's scared. He keeps saying she's not real. And then she
Because
switches
she's
gears.
not.
Well, yeah. And she switches gears and she says, "You should be careful, Daddy." And I was like, that is the most terrifying
I
thing to
hate
come.
everything about it.
Yes. And so we see his holes in his skin that have formed from that bug bite and a yellow jacket, I presume. I didn't look too closely. It looked like yellow jacket.
Yeah, it
Crawls
was.
out of his body and up his body. And I don't know. It looked like it was going towards his eye, but I honestly did
It
not look to see
it
where it
was
ended.
going towards his eye, but they cut away before you actually saw it get
That's
there.
good.
Thank God, because I would have thrown up.
I did indeed look away just in case. So I'm glad it didn't actually go there. This show's really, we've talked about that. This show's really good about like not going there,
Right. It
but
goes it goes
never
it
mind.
goes just close enough. But when it first showed the beast starting to come out of his chest, it was gross. And then it showed the like wing coming out, but it didn't actually show like the moment of it breaking out. And then it showed it climbing up to his eye, and it like almost showed it going to his eye, but not quite. And it was like everything was just about the most disgusting thing you could ever see.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely the worst. Um, and then we go to Marcus again, and he's talking to the oldest daughter, who we learn is now 60 years older. So this has been like 60-year long event.
Yeah.
And this poor woman, I for sure would not have moved back to this island. I don't know why she's there.
She didn't. She lived on the other side of the bay. They took the boat over to her.
Yeah, but that still feels too close to me.
Sure.
Like a
Sure.
boat right away. I would have moved like
To a
state
different
behind.
state? Yeah, no.
Yeah, like that's still too close to home. Um, and he asks about what happened, and apparently he was the best father on the planet. He told them every night how much he loved them. He was always there when they needed him. And one day he just started acting crazy. And she said no one believed her when she told her side of the story. They they just assumed he had gone crazy, not that it was a demon inside of him, essentially.
Right.
And she just kept saying she was like she was like, yeah, the thing inside of him wore him like a cheap suit. And I was like, that is a great description and terrifying.
Yeah.
And so it's, if nothing, reminiscent of exactly how Andy Kim is. And the greatest father that you would never imagine is gonna kill everyone. So we'll see how that goes.
Right.
Not having high
But
hopes there.
yeah, no, but it also reminded me of the way um Pazuzu like handled the girls, and
Yeah.
like in the terms of like just wearing their personalities as
Mhm.
a cheap suit, and like
Yeah.
having them being the greatest people in the world, and then one day just saying something that's so not them. It felt accurate to the show.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so many little pieces in this episode where we get into Marcus's psyche, but like not too much each time. So like they're
There's
having a conversation and they're talking about like her losing her dad and her losing her whole family. And she just looks at him and she's like, and she's asked what he's lost. And he doesn't answer. But you can tell this whole episode he's like not only struggling with everything that's happening in the world, but
hmm
also struggling inwardly.
Well, no, because it stems from the fact that she said, I lost everyone because they didn't believe me. And he goes, well, I believe you. And she goes, what have you lost? Because she
Yeah.
knows to be able to just at face value believe something that dark, something awful must have happened to you, which
And
is so sad.
yeah. And so clearly her father was possessed by whatever demon is now on this island, I presume.
Yeah.
Um, and speaking of, we go back to Andy, who is gathering everyone for camping. He is very excited. We learn that Caleb told Harper that there are starving bears in the forest, and this poor child She is hanging in there well though. She's
Yeah.
already fitting in.
Oh my God. She goes, are there really bears? And Andy goes, have you ever seen a bear use a boat? And then Rose goes, you know, bears can swim, right? He goes, oh yeah, there's definitely bears on the island.
Yeah.
Like it was just the cutest, like real family moment.
Yes. And it just showed how well she's fitting with everyone. Like, oh God, it was so
Hmm.
sweet. But of course, as we leave, we flash back to Grace, glaring at all of them. Not a good sign.
No.
Little did we know things would only get worse from there, but it's fine. Um, so we go back to Marcus, and he calls Tomas, and he tells him about the demon, and he tells him about the Glenn Powell and the woman and all this, and he says that they need to go in the daylight to talk to the Kim family. And
Because Tomas is like, let's go right now. And he's like, can we just like fucking breathe
he's
for
like,
a
do you know how
second?
terrifying that is if we show up and start just talking about demons? Maybe we wait till it's daylight outside.
Like, just
Like,
like give them like a hot second.
yeah. And Tomas is like, yeah, sure thing. Turns off the phone, turns around. It's like, well, okay. Well, we don't
So
follow.
dumb. No, he's
It's
the worst.
the worst. And then we have our brief moment with Bennett that I forgot was a thing happening.
Yeah.
Um, and Mouse comes in and turns out they're getting ready to like fly away because they are getting close to being found out.
Well,
And
and they're
so
gonna go to Chicago and find like Dolores or whatever. That's
this is
not her name.
Dolores.
No, it's
Oh,
what's her
that
name?
evil woman.
Yeah. My problem was that my brain thought of Dolores Herbig from Dead Like Me. That's the face that was in my mind. And then I was like, that's the wrong show. What is this woman's name?
Yeah.
Maria.
Maria. I was like, it's M, but I was thinking Morgan. I was like, that's not it.
No, Maria
Yes, Maria.
Walters.
And
So she
so
is not Dolores Herbig.
not Dolores Herbig at all. So they're talking about this, and the whole time Father Bennett's just praying over Dolores, and he's like, just keeps going, keeps going. And she's like, she's not in there. And he's like, I saw it happen. I've seen people come back from integration. And she's like, yeah, because that woman had already been possessed and been through it before. Like
And
she had already
survived
figured
once. Like she
how to
was a
fight.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, this is a different situation. And he just wasn't giving in. He wasn't giving in. And then Dolores, quote unquote, starts talking to him. And I was like, oh, he's about to just like lose it all. He's going to make the worst mistake. And he asks her like about saving herself and all these people. And when she says she'd like to save herself, he was like, that's how I know
He was
you're
like,
not.
wrong answer.
And I was like, oh, thank God. I thought for sure he was going to be like, I'm so concerned he's going to be the one manipulated and just die in some dumb way because he
I know.
isn't thinking.
But he's so much smarter than we give him credit for. We always forget that he really truly is so smart.
I know it's just hard to see sometimes.
Because
But
he's the most like he is I want to make like a lawful good
yeah,
like chaotic
yeah,
like because like I feel like Bennett is lawful good, Tomas is like neutral good, and Marcus is chaotic good
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely, 100%. Um, but yeah, so he instead injects her with the holy water, burns her to the ground, and they are on their way. And I was like, great,
Yep.
we did the right thing. Moving on.
Correct.
So now we're camping, and it's just so cute. They're toasting marshmallows, and again, Harper's just fitting in. Caleb's telling
Shelby's the only,
stories.
or not Shelby. Caleb's the only one who can roast marshmallows correctly because he's waiting for the smell instead of the visual.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Chuck is like, someone roast me marshmallows. And then Harper's like telling Rose that like, she's like, yeah, I think he's had like 17. And she's like, that's 3 more than me. And I was like, this is just the cutest interaction. And Harper says she wants to stay.
Yeah.
And just so sweet.
And
So
Rose is like, kind of like, yeah, me too.
I know. I was like, they're gonna be such a cute family if everyone doesn't die. We'll
It's
see.
not
One of
looking
two
so
ways.
good for them, though.
Not looking so good for them. One of 2 ways. So we go to Andy, who's been wandering off by himself, which is a great sign.
Never a good sign.
Yeah. And Grace shows up. Grace, who doesn't leave the house, shows up. And he tells her to let him go. And she's obviously not.
I'm not.
Um, and he tells her that, oh, so then Rose comes over there and he tells her that he thinks he's having a mental breakdown. I was like, dude, I wish it was just a mental breakdown. Those are
Like,
fixable.
right.
And then he's like showing that he has pain in his chest, and she's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? He's like, it's just a bug bite. And I was like, he should show her this so-called bug bite.
Yeah,
Like,
like the hive on his chest. Ugh.
totally probably should go to the doctor or an exorcist. But this whole time,
Same
Grace,
thing, really.
yeah, Grace just looks terrifying. She's wandering around the outside of the campfire, and when she passes his truck, you see his eyes glaze over. And I'm just like, oh, no,
The problem
not
was I looked down at that moment and I looked up and I just saw Chuck like
glazed.
glazed and I go, no, no, no. I don't usually rewind this and rewatch things, but I did because I was like, something is happening and I don't like it.
I rewound like 8 places in this episode because I kept missing nuances. I was like, no, I need to know how we got here.
Well, after
Um,
last week's debacle, I understand your
yeah,
fastidiousness.
yes, yes. Um, yep. So that's where we leave the campfire and we go back to Tomas. And of course, he's gone back to the Kim's house.
Because he's a
Um,
fucking idiot.
this might be for the best,
Oh no,
but
it always turns out for the
yeah,
best. It's never the correct decision, but it always turns out for the best. And I really don't
yes,
understand how he gets as lucky as he does. I
he's
mean, I
God.
do. It's God, right?
Right.
Fuck off. But
Yeah, but it's just very unfortunate while it's happening. So he goes inside, the door's open, obviously, because why not? And all the lights just start shutting off. And I was like, And then you see his face glaze over. And I was like, did he just get possessed? Did this demon enter him? What is going on now? But instead, we go back to Marcus. This episode does jump around a bit towards the end, so just hang
yeah,
in there. So we're with Marcus, and he's chatting with Peter, his bestie, and we learn that Peter was in the military for, I think he said, a couple of tours, and
yeah. Two tours of Kosovo.
yeah, and so they were chatting, and Marcus is clearly losing his mind because he's, the longer he's going without hearing God is the worse off he's getting. And so basically, Peter's chalking it up to like a PTSD. And he's like, here's how I've dealt with it after these 2 tours. And he doesn't quite say it like that, but that's what I'm gathering.
Yeah,
And then he's like, this is what I saw for a long time after these tours. And he's like, but I found a way to like kind of quiet it. And he's like, and Marcus is just like, do you want to know what I see? And I was just like,
well,
oh.
no. See, this scene made me uncomfortable for a little quick second because he was talking about the child that he found in the rubble in Kosovo and how awful the war was and the images in his head. And then he just looked at Marcus and said, what do you see?
Yeah.
And that felt proby to me. And there was a couple of minutes there where I thought he was part of the whole demon thing and he was trying to get to Marcus. I'm not 100% convinced I'm wrong on that either. Like,
no, he's in love with Marcus.
I think he is in love with Marcus for sure. But like, I wasn't 100% convinced that there wasn't some like
remnant.
Because it was just the way he said, what did you see, felt very much like the salesman in the first season, like probing, like
That's kind of, yeah,
and
I see
and
what
I
you're
was
saying.
and so like I was taken aback, but then his reaction to Marcus's like trauma
Breakdown.
dump was like, oh no, he's just a really good person. Like, but it took me a hot second. It also doesn't help that I had just watched the episode knowing that he was the shitty ambassador from Stargate.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so I was like,
You're
of
just
course
like,
he's a bad guy.
the whole
Right.
time. Yeah. No. But we do indeed go through Marcus's trauma laced life where he sees his father kill his mother, and then he kills his father, and then he's the 12-year-old kid that's being bullied. Well, I guess he was 7 when he got there, but he was there
And
for a while.
his life in the monastery and everything.
Yeah,
and
where he was bullied and he cut himself, and then we see where he's he sees the boy die when his neck breaks as he's trying to exorcise him. And we see like Harper's mom and all the terrible things she did to him that, I mean, she did to Harper, that he was like, these are not real things. Like, these are not things that people do to each other. That are not even demonic. And he
Yeah.
just had a breakdown. But don't worry, that's not the only breakdown that's happening. We are back at Tomas, who is in the house exploring the house with a flashlight. I don't know why he did. I don't, maybe he did, but we did not see him try the lights. And I never understand why the first option is just to like go with a flashlight. Like, who's going to see? You're out in the middle of the woods.
Again, Tomas doesn't make decisions in a healthy way.
Yeah. So he's wandering the house with a flashlight and he keeps staring at the wall. And I'm guessing a handprint's missing from his dream. I do not remember his dream that well. But if he's just staring at that one spot.
I don't remember his dream either, but and I thought that was what he was doing at first too, but then they like showed like the subtitles said there was whispering, and I couldn't tell if he was actually looking for the handprint or if he was just listening to the wall. So it could be both.
It could be both. Yeah, I wasn't sure either. But he does hear at one point a door creak open amidst Sadie. I'm so sorry. She's like in my purse. One second. Get out of my purse. Okay. She did it. She got
out. Good. You listened today, Sadie. That's a rare occurrence.
I see you. I know. She like, especially when I'm like busy with something, that's when she takes advantage because she knows that like, one, I'm going to be slower to respond if I notice it all.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he hears a door creak and then he hears more voices, and then he finds Morty, who's been left alone, of course, which is kind of sad, but he is a bird, so that's how it goes. Fine. It just seemed sad because I know there's demons.
It seemed, yeah.
And then he starts hearing a distorted noise come from the record player. And he walks over to it and he starts praying as he's walking over to it. And then we see Grace appear behind him. Alas. So we're back at the campsite and Caleb is telling campfire stories again about the Island Witch because all he wants to do is terrify Harper, who is not as easily shaken as I would have expected, but I guess she's been through a lot in her life.
I mean, yeah.
So,
she did spend the last how many years thinking she was possessed by a demon.
Yes.
That while her mom was making her drink bleach. So like,
sure. Yeah. And then we pan over to Verity and Shelby, who are talking about weird stuff happening. And he's like, "Have you noticed stuff?" And she's like, "No, absolutely not. Everything's fine." Like, she's like, "The priests are the weird things that are happening. Like, it's just them being here is weird and stuff like that." And he's like, "No." Well, and then we learn that she was basically tortured by her religious people, and she was like chained to a bed, and she tried to kill herself 3 times. And I was like, this all makes a lot more sense why she hates them so much. And like, and I mean, Shelby's right. He's like, at first he's like, they were misguided. She's like, misguided. He's like, no, they were evil. He's like, this is different. And
he was like, faith doesn't mean that. Like, believing in God is not hurting people. Like, that's not a thing.
And he's like, and you can see that because like the outcome of like my family, he's like, my entire family is dead. He's like, except me. And he's like, because I found something else outside of my family. And he's like, that's what God actually does. Yeah. And then they bond over hating camping. And I was like,
which does mean that I was incorrect and he is not related to Bennett.
Yes, because his whole family is dead. So I thought that whenever I saw it too.
Which I mean also makes sense because he's not French or from a French African nation. But I don't know. I just was grasping at straws for.
I mean, it could be a distant relation still, but it's not like an immediate one. And then that's whenever Harper starts saying that Caleb was telling her about the Island Witch, and we learn that Truck has been gone for quite a minute. And then we have a few back and forths. Thomas is in the house and the chandeliers start banging. Doors are opening and closing. And Still not turning on the lights. That's fine. Then they're out looking for Truck, and Verity goes into the abandoned house and finds him banging his head on the wall. And when we go back to Tomas, we're in the room where Grace's room, and she's banging a doll, and it is doing exactly what Truck is doing. I almost called him Chuck, but it's not his name.
No, poor Truck.
And Truck will not stop doing it, no matter what Verity says, and Verity just thinks he's sleepwalking because he's known to sleepwalk.
He knows to sleepwalk, yeah.
And Grace turns the doll around to face her, and he starts choking her. And then we see Tomas trying to reveal the demon. He's saying all his prayers, and we have Andy who's looking for Verity, and he finds her with Truck just in the nick of time, which is good. And then everything in the room with Tomas just starts hovering. And it's so like creepy in like a weird sense, like a less creepy than other things way.
Yeah, but it was weird.
It was very disturbing, yeah. So Truck obviously comes back too, and he's freaking out because he has no idea what's going on. And everyone is showing now. We have all of the kids, Rose, Andy, everyone. And Andy like can't focus for some reason. He like, because he knows that it's like some other force. It's not Truck.
I didn't know if he wasn't focused because he was thinking about Grace or if he was being taken over.
Yeah, I thought in that moment it just seemed like he was like, because he's seeing so much more clearly if worse things are happening, but he's seeing so much clearly that it's because of some other force.
Right.
And then he tells Shelby to take Caleb and Harper to the neighbor's house, and Rose says she's taking Truck because they have to file a report and all this stuff, like it's required. And Caleb, of course, is panicking that he's going to lose Truck. And Andy takes Verity and says that they're going to go to the doctor. And she keeps saying she's fine, but he's like, no, we have to go. It's part of it.
Yeah.
And then Tomas is going through all these old pictures when he finds this rock thing, and he starts like seeing something, like it starts making him like think clear. I couldn't tell what this was. At first I thought it was a heart, and I was like, this is not Snow White. That is probably not a heart.
No,
so I was like, it's got to be like a rock formation of something, and I don't know what. But maybe we'll find out one day. It's not today. So
not today. No.
He starts saying like, reveal yourself, and Grace grabs him and pulls him in, and he sees everything. We start with the dead family, and
the dead family that we started with in the witch's hut, I don't think is the same dead family because unless it was just another older man, because it wasn't the same.
It wasn't the same guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if
we're going through a transition because we have that one, and whenever the guy, because he also kills himself, and that's not how it happens in the Glenn Powell story. He goes to the other house.
So I think that there's more than one incident.
And I think this is over the years how he's gone through and lived here.
Well, because then there's the lady pushing her son into the well, and that's clearly a different family.
Yep. And every instance, Tomas feels it. When he shoots the gun, Tomas gets shot in the stomach. And they say the phrase that I didn't look up what it stands for.
Oh shit, I almost looked it up too, and then I didn't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, and then he sees the woman, and when he's like, I want to go home, Mom, and she pushes him in the well, and he drowns, and then Tomas drowns.
Yeah.
And then we go to the house where the kids were, and we see the dad beat them with this chain, which is the story we knew about already.
Yeah.
And gets beaten with a chain, and it's very disturbing, all very disturbing. And he's locked out when the dad goes to the party. He can't do anything about any of these deaths, which is even more stressful.
Yeah.
And then when he comes back to, he immediately passes out. So that's good. Um, and then Marcus looks like he's praying and he seems like at peace when he comes back. And I was like, oh, is God talking to him again? And then Peter asks him what he heard and he says nothing. And I was like, I thought we were just upset about not hearing nothing. But I guess he was trying to quiet his mind from all of these like horrors that he's seeing
Yeah,
instead.
he was like, it's a start. Like nothing is a start because at
Yeah.
least it's not the negative.
Yeah. And then they just start making out because they're in love. Although I did say, Marcus, maybe now's not the time. You have to go save Tomas and, the rest of the world. But I am glad you found some kind of happiness, but maybe put it on hold for a second. Um, and so we go to Andy and Verity, and Andy did not take her to the doctor. He instead takes her straight to the house. And Verity is saying it's her fault for waking him up because, as we know, sometimes with sleepwalking, Truck doesn't react well when he's waking up. And so she keeps saying it, and Andy's just like completely ignoring her. He is not saying a word to her. And then she's like, oh, I thought we were going to the hospital. And again, doesn't say anything. He's just acting super strange. And
Mhm.
he gets out of the car and runs inside. And then Verity ends up following him in, which doesn't feel like a good idea, but fine. And then we see Tomas awake. And then Andy goes to Grace's room and he's having a fit. He throws this weird rock through the owl painting and the pillow head appears, which not a great look, pretty scary. But this time the pillow head is actually Nikki and not Grace. And then Tomas looks up from the bottom of the house and sees the light on in the room. And that's the end.
Yeah,
So cool, cool, cool.
and cool, cool, cool. And Tanam Vale means farewell.
That tracks. That tracks. Um, I do
But I
have a
think I
couple
think it
pieces.
means I think I'm looking at some stuff and I think it like means like goodbye forever. Like it's like a very
Oh,
stern farewell.
okay. Well, that's not what happened if this demon keeps coming back.
Right.
So
Um,
he's a liar. Add that to his list. Um, so I do actually have a couple pieces of trivia, which is shocking. I know. They're not like super interesting, but they are trivia.
right.
So Peter mentions how he did 2 tours as a GI in Kosovo, presumably referring to the NATO intervention in 1999. And in reality, there was no ground warfare between NATO forces and the Yugoslavian army during the conflict, only airstrikes. So, incorrect use of the military. And then this says it's a spoiler, but it's not. When
Might be a spoiler for this episode. They sometimes put it as spoilers because people will look at it before they watch the episode.
I think the first line is like potentially a spoiler, so I'm not gonna say it.
Okay.
But Father Bennett, when he's talking to Sister Dolores, like he responds, the demon responds using the name Devon, and we haven't heard that since episode 3, and so like this demon has remembered him from earlier on, because no one else calls him Devon. So
Yeah.
that's a fun fact. Yeah,
Also, sorry, also, I just don't know that that thing about the NATO stuff is true because I'm
I think it was
pretty.
specifically during that time.
Oh, okay, because I was gonna say there's a base. Like I think it's Air Force,
Yeah,
not like Army, but there is a base in Kosovo, so you could still do a tour in Kosovo.
yeah. So it was specifically against the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and their commander in chief. Um, and there was no ground warfare at that time. So like they may have had a ground base, but there was no warfare at that specific
But
conflict.
also, I think that is just making assumptions about how old this guy is.
It is.
So like it could have been a
It
totally
could have been
different
a
time.
different war. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't know. You know how IMDb is. But I was just
Yeah.
thrilled to see trivia on there because I haven't honestly.
That's very fair.
So, but yeah. So on that note, who do you want to punch in the face? I
So
can't hear
many
you. You
people.
cut
I
out.
said all I said was so many people.
Oh, I know.
Uh, um, um, I think I still have to go with the demon Grace Nikki thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. That's probably the correct one. I think I'm gonna have to go with the mom who just pushed her son into the well. I
I
understand there's a
mean,
demon involved, and it's the
right.
same
And also,
essentially.
we don't know the whole story, but like that kind of sucks.
But like that one was just a little like no one cared. At least like in the other two, there's like he's upset when he's killing, whether he's just upset in general or he's upset that he's a demon or that he knows he's about to die. But she had like no emotion. Like
Um,
she just like pushed him in and then just like stood there.
and also like
So
pushing your child in the well is how Samara and like the ring is formed. So like, don't do that.
yeah. So like she's the one. Um, who's your MVP? It's also hard, I know.
I'm gonna go with.
No
There's a
one's
like the problem. No, the thing is, there's a lot of people who had like one really good moment, but
yeah.
nobody like. I guess I'm gonna have to go with um Peter for like helping Marcus get through his shit. Cause like, I mean, Marcus obviously got through his shit, and like Shelby had a moment that I really, really loved, and
Yeah.
Bennett had a moment that I really, really loved, and like Harper had some good moments, but nobody really like saved the episode for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's exactly how I feel. So you're going with Peter. I think I'm gonna go with Bennett because I really thought he was gonna fall prey to this demon and
he did
he
it.
stayed strong.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I was impressed by him,
that's totally fair.
which was nice. But yeah. So on that note, if you have thoughts about demons or want to do an exorcist at Mary Kate's wedding with us, whatevs, let us know. You can email us deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. I do apologize. I did not make it through the 31 Nights of Halloween, but I did make it through 31 Nights of October as a person. So I'm sorry. Um, and if you want to find stuff about me, also not very active, but you can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And we will see you on my birthday at Sci-Fi Sunday.
Bye.